Hello, Woober Club League fans and players, and welcome to the featured match for Week 2. We have an incredibly exciting match this week between uh, the person who has won more championships than anyone else in league history, Illogic, also known as Steve Chuck's Envoy, also known as Nate, and Hitmonchan, who has been one of the better defensive players in season history, with teams often revolving around regenerator cores, which are incredibly hard to break through. And I am actually joined today by Hitmonchan. So go ahead and say hello.
Hey everyone.
Yeah, and this is Cat Measles, also known as Matt, by the way. So, that said, we've got an exciting match. We're going to talk through it as we go. And without further ado, three, two, one, go. All right, so battle starts off. Nate leads with Rotom, and John sends out Archeops. So you'd think Archeops is going to want to get out of there, but Rotom is actually the one to do the hard switch. Archeops following up with a U-turn, so it will switch into Swampert, able to once again get that type advantage, while Cobalion will set up Stealth Rocks and tank that Earthquake pretty nicely. So in comes Latias, and so now Swampert can return the rocks, and Jirachi comes in. So, kind of at a standstill so far here. The most damage has been dealt on just Cobalion, but now Latias has taken about half. But Cryogonal is going to take a decent hit there, left with 69%, which is pretty nice if I do say so myself. And yeah, Jirachi keeps coming in to take these side shocks.
Now this is where things get interesting.
Yes, the freeze of the Ice Punch on a fire type, no less. So you hate to see that. I think I'm the player with the most freezes of anyone in the league. So I relate to poor Nate here, but he's gonna cut his losses, switch out, and take that Earthquake, or I guess decide not to cut his losses because Flareon probably would have gone down there. So here's one of John's favorites, Amoonguss. Takes that burn like it's no problem. And the safety goggles will protect Cobalion from Spore on the switch in.
Get to see who has the safety goggles on the other side of the field.
Yep,
There's
it's
always
the
one.
one or like half the team when I'm playing against Amoonguss. So,
hmm Now that was an interesting turn by Nate. The Volt switch into Swampert. I really didn't think he was going to make that play and punish me for it.
yeah, yeah. So lots of switching here. He does end up bringing Flareon back in. Um, I guess maybe thinking it's time to go out, or maybe just putting a fire type in front of that steel type, hoping he'll thaw. But yeah, now it's in front of a water type and a ground type, and so not looking that
Mm.
too much. Still frozen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it still feels bad about the freeze though, especially since Flareon had that rocky helmet. That was going to be a hard check to Jirachi, which would have been a big problem for me later on.
yeah. So not able to pivot as well as it might have otherwise been able to, and he ends up just sacking it there. So that does a lot of damage to Amoonguss, but not
That
enough.
was probably, from
Well,
my
actually, oh, go ahead.
perspective, that was the scariest play in the entire match because I could not deal with Latias. I thought I was going to be able to deal with Latias with Jirachi, and that was just not the case. This was also a really scary moment right here too.
Oh yeah, yeah. He did bring Defiant. I thought he wouldn't, but there it is, and
hmm
Body Slam is gonna proc that Figgy Berry, and then crit, which did not matter. Um,
hmm
but yeah, in
Yeah.
comes.
Now
Good.
in my game plan, I had thought that Incineroar is definitely going to deal with the Obstagoon, but I hadn't anticipated the rocks. I hadn't realized I hadn't gotten rid of them yet. So Incineroar was supposed to live that second body slam, but he did not. So this put me in a really tough position, and I had to go completely off script after that point.
Ah, I see. Yeah. So You see the paralysis there was kind of big. Lots of switching going on. That's the way these players like to play it. Volt switch into Amoonguss, and we'll see if Amoonguss switches out next turn to recoup some HP. Just barely hanging on from that burn. And it does not switch. It actually goes down to Rotom, who switches on its own back to Zeraora. So both players at 3 Pokemon still. It's anyone's game. Nate is a little pressured on the HP, but I believe some of John's are getting down pretty low as well. Yeah, you see Jirachi is low. I think Archeops is at about half at this point. And so here comes Rotom. And it flinches off that Zen headbutt, which is obviously, pretty huge. It might have been able to take Jirachi out here. And then
Yep.
Zen headbutts once again, no misses. And here's Zeraora. Gonna try to reverse sweep here. Cryogonal on the switch. Knockoff does not KO, but Zeraora being faster should be able to finish it. That's one down. It looks like it might be able to pull the sweep off. Here's Jirachi. And Jirachi is scarfed. Does not flinch. Goes down to knockoff. Zeraora is barely hanging on. And here's Archeops. And it is faster. So that was scarfed too?
That was scarfed.
Man, and it all came down to that. If Zeraora was faster, then Archeops would have gone down, and the battle would have ended differently. But man, what a crazy roller coaster of a battle! Definitely some hacks on both sides, I think. I'd say, that freeze was probably more consequential than we'll know, but then you had the paralyze, and yeah, it's hard to say, but yeah, incredibly close game, and kudos to Nate for almost pulling it back. So it's takes a lot to take him down, and well, you did it. How does it feel?
Feels good. I can't wait till we get our next match, and hopefully I can beat him without as many hacks next time.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure he's looking to prove himself in a match like that too. So yeah, well, you played well, and I think that this is indicative of you both being incredibly strong players who I'm sure will continue to be featured in the power rankings going forward, and I don't think it would be a stretch to say you'd be high seeds in the playoffs either. So yeah, that said, any closing thoughts?
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, but really hoping to face Nate in the playoffs again. Nate and I actually work very closely together in draft. Nate's almost like a mentor to me. I go over my teams with him in every match, and he actually convinced me to draft Jirachi as well. So really looking forward to seeing what else my team has in store for the rest of the season, and looking forward to seeing if I can battle Nate again.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, and I think you both have some really interesting Pokemon on your teams. um, Rotom in particular is one that I like a lot. On Nate's team, usually you see some other form of it, but here he's just got the little guy, little spinner, and yeah, it was fun to see that really put in work in this match. And on your team, Archeops and Cryogonal, obviously, um, some less common picks, but able to put in work and hold their own. And Archeops is the last man standing here at the end. So yeah. All right, well, that about does it for this week. I hope to see you all next week with what is sure to be another exciting match based on how the season has been going so far. So until then, I will catch you all later. This is Matt Cat Measles, joined by John Hitmon John, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
And welcome to the Power Rankings section of our video for Whipper Club League Season 8, Week Number 2. I'm your host, as always, Illogic, Coach of the Buffalo Boufflon, and of course, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Steve, Coach of the Waterdeep Wobbuffet.
Hey, everybody.
And our special guest for this week is Michael, Coach of the Route 1 Burbs. He is a newcomer to our draft league, but has already left a major impression, as you will see by his standings here in the Power Rankings. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be part of this league. I know I've been talking
to Steve for a while about joining in. Finally took the plunge last season, back again, and looking to stay for a long time. And maybe you'll see me back around some of these videos.
Yeah, definitely excited to have you in the league. Definitely, coaches like you are the ones who are improving the overall quality of the league, making it much more competitive, and that's why it's so much more interesting, I think, to be able to go into the power rankings, see in this absolutely stacked field who is doing well. Let's jump right into it. As we can see, post week 2, we have a couple of changes here. A couple of coaches that we had on last time have dropped out of the top 4 here. Again, the top 4 are those who are going to be getting the round 1 bye. These happen to line up with the top 4 coaches by standings, but that's not always necessarily the case because these are power rankings, not just standings rankings. But anyways, going right into it, our number 1 coach for the second week in a row is Joey and his Akron Agrons. Joey came in with a team of Tornadus Therian, Kiram, Arcanine, Minchow, Seismitoad, and Spiritomb, took on the Zanesville Zigzagoons, who've been a nice surprise in the league, but who was able to come away with a 3-0 victory. Awesome play turn 1 there, swapping a Spiritomb into Klefki to avoid the Thunder Wave. Once he saw the player off come off, he decided he had done enough damage, was able to bring it back later in order to kind of sack it off to a Sleep Powder, which was a great choice as well to kind of sack that off to the Sleep and absorb that. Handled the Vileplume very well, which is something that Chad had struggled with pretty hard in week 1, so definitely nice to see that. Probably the standout play for me was Joey made an awesome double into the Minchow. He had previously in the match brought his Seismitoad in against Rotom Wash. Pretty classic counter to it, immune to both stab moves. And he knew that Rotom had to swap out into something. Made a nice prediction, got Minchow in for absolutely free against the Mon that is 4 times weak to fighting, and just executed it pretty easily, pretty handily there. So that was really nice. Tornadus, really nice swapping around with it. Its nickname is, of course, not going to stick around for long. So it found the proper time to defog, came in and took the proper hit, sacked at the proper time. Great pivoting with it overall. His 2 regenerator mons, even with spikes down for a decent amount of the match, was able to go around pretty quickly. And Kiram, the cleanup at the end. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Just a clean match from Joey overall. Another victory under his belt. What do you think of his match, Steve?
I would agree he got a victory, but clean, I don't know if this is clean by his standards. He happened to lose 3 Mons this match, and that's pretty rough for him, after all last season going, losing 1 Mon throughout the entire regular season, this time losing a couple more. We expect more from him, at least in the regular season.
Fair enough. Do you have anything else to add on to that, Michael?
Yeah, I think you covered the match great. I mean, definitely the strength that led Joey to victory here was he made excellent switches and pivots that just kept momentum in his favor the entire time. And I think we're going to see some more of that as the season goes on. And like Steve was saying, from my experience, he's very good at playing for differential. So I expect to see his numbers stay pretty impressive.
Definitely after a 6-0 victory in week 1, and as Steve said, barely any mods lost at all in the regular season last season. Joey's becoming quite the powerhouse in the league very quickly. Excited to see where he goes from here. Perhaps not next week, but we can get into the schedule a little bit later. For now, we've got to cover our number 2 team, which is our guest, Michael, and the Route 1 Burbs. Steve, could you please take us through his match and how he moved up to 2-0 as well?
Yeah, so Michael and his Route 1 Burbs brought a team of Mamoswine, Dragapult, Darmanitan, Umbreon, Tentacruel, and Keldeo to his matchup against the Summit County Psyducks. And first thing I do have to say is just shouting out the nicknames, facing off against High Brad Majors, and all the nicknames being basically High Brad Majors, but without high, hello, good day, nods. Excellent stuff. Really exciting every week to see all the nicknames, and looking forward to that in the future. But as for the match itself, some nice early pivots throughout the match to keep up momentum and favorable matchups. A little early lets the Mamoswine go down against the Registeel. It ended up working out for him, but I would have liked to probably see switching out. Maybe wasn't expecting Registeel to carry Body Press. Outside of that, though, great early pressure from Keldeo, able to punch some big holes, including the Silvally, which can be quite a threat. After that, though, I think the start of the show was Tentacruel in the mid-game, picking up a crucial speed boost with the Rapid Spin against the Espeon, allowing it to beat what would be reverse this matchup after a speed boost and knockoff. All of a sudden, Tentacruel's winning this what would usually be an unfavorable matchup, and then Tentacruel able to kind of clean things up in the middle. However, kind of gets PP stalled out. Doesn't pick up any freezes despite using all of its ice beams. A little unfortunate there, but sometimes that happens. But yeah, played all the way down into the end game. Was able to chip away at the end at the Mandibuzz and Garchomp. And of course, great use of Dragapult, just like week 1. Keeping the bench warm until that final Mons at the last limb of life and comes in and secures it's the final KO. Michael, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Mons all did what I wanted them to do, except Mamoswine, which, yeah, that I should have switched out there. For some reason, I just wasn't thinking of body press at the time, and I was nervous when that went down, but Umbreon was as annoying as it's known to be and was great at passing wishes around my team. Keldeo put in tremendous work. I did have a wide lens on it, but it hit every Hydro Pump and Focus Blast I needed it to. And Tentacruel, yeah, also surprising. You talking about that Espeon matchup, the Rapid Spin there wasn't just for the Espeon, but that meant that the Garchomp couldn't come in after it because I'd outspeed and Ice Beam it. So yeah, I think I got a little lucky with some of the move accuracy, and I think I expected a tougher matchup. I expected them to bring some other mons that I think could have made it more difficult, but I think just a solidly played game. And
Yeah, I mean, 4-attack Keldeo with wide lens did absolutely put in work with Flip Turn. The other water-type Tentacruel sitting in front of everything. Umbreon, I think a little bit lucky, got an early Toxic Miss, so that was able to just pass off wishes as needed, heal up Darmanitan after some Flare Blitzes into Garchomp and things like that. But overall, very well executed. 5-0 overall is the score, and that brings him up to second place overall in the league. Very well done for the Route 1 Burbs. Now we're going to move on to our number 3 team, making it his first appearance on this list, though we had him on the other list before. It's the Seattle Steamrollers and Chad, the Season 7 champions. Michael, why don't you take us through this battle?
yeah, so this week Chad had a solid 4-0 versus Steve here again and the Waterdeep Wobbuffets. He brought a team of Rillaboom, Volcanion, Chansey, Corviknight, Porygon Z, Landorus against Steve's Conkeldurr, Raikou, Togekiss, Darmanitan Galar, Tangela, and Combusken. And the story of this match really was that Steve did not have anything that could take the hits that he needed it to. An early Rock Slide miss from Steve's Combusken after it had set up a Speed Boost and a Swords Dance, let the Volcanion Chad's lead take it out, and then it was healthy enough to live and take out the Conkeldurr following that. After that, Chansey was able to come out into Darmanitan that came out after the Conkeldurr and taken out the Volcanion, was able to threaten status. Steve then switched into the Tangela and got a Toxic on the Tangela, which would be fantastic if it couldn't safely teleport out to Porygon Z, which easily took the KO on the Tangela, then put massive damage on the Togekiss, and after it took out the Togekiss, Rillaboom could really just clean up with Crafty Glide. It was really just the hits were there, and Steve didn't have much to take them. Steve, you got anything else to say?
Yeah, I mean, I will add that after this battle, Chad and I played a couple scrimmages, and on the fourth one, we were playing until Combusken hit the Rock Slide and it flinched. And in that situation, I won. Of course, understandable that sometimes misses happen, sometimes flinches don't happen, but I just want everyone to know that if the flinch and hit happen, this is my game.
Yeah.
But it's probably not best to bet the entire game on that.
It would have been kind of interesting to see a Combusken lead off and then also sweep. Of all things, a Combusken, but pretty interesting, pretty cool attempt there. I wonder what all could have happened potentially, even if it had just hit, but we may never know. Also, a little disappointed here. As the resident Tangela master, it absolutely got manhandled. Chad played around that extremely well.
Well,
Apparently it is possible to threaten Tangela.
He was a man after my own heart this week with that Combuskin, because last season, Blaziken and I really got along. But there is a caveat with this power ranking that we have to talk about, and that's Chad's trading out 3 big Pokemon from his team, and we'll have to see going on what exactly his team shapes up to be. Those trades being Lando T for Lando I, Moltres Galar for Frostlass, Porygon Z for Volcarona. Either of you guys have any big comments on how you see those trades going and how that will affect his team going forward?
Yeah, definitely. The Landorus swap out, it seems insane to drop Landorus Therian, right? This thing has been 40% usage in OU for several generations in a row now, it seems. But I understand his point and the negative synergy it has with Rillaboom. That kind of screwed him over a little bit week 1. Definitely understand where he's coming from with that. And of course, he loves that Volcarona, and what he did with it last season was absolutely incredible. Not to mention what Joey was able to accomplish with it with this very Rillaboom. So maybe a 2-0 team just got even scarier. Any other thoughts on that, Steve?
I mean, this is nothing new. Chad did this last draft league. Plays with the team for a couple weeks and then sees what he likes and doesn't like and swaps out the team to make it what he wants. The advantage is he definitely uses the trades and is able to get a team better suited to what he wants to do. Disadvantage is he makes all his trades right away. So if further down the line he finds something isn't working for him, he doesn't have any trades left to make. But it worked out for him in the past, and we'll certainly see how it does for him this season.
Yeah, interesting note, too, that Chad in the regular season hasn't necessarily done well, but of course in the playoffs he has made the finals 4 different times. He's already off to a 2-0 start, already fixing up the team to his liking. Yikes, watch out for Chad in the near future. But let's move on to the number 4 team to round out our top 4 power rankings, and that is another newcomer to this list, the Newport Noctowls, coached by Elf Owls. And he had his battle against Tony. He brought a team of Heatran, Tangrowth, Lantern, Rapidash, Galar, Zygarde 10%, and the Hydreigon. Right off the gate, you could see just how well prepared he was, how he'd already kind of looked at Tony's first match, led off with a Brick Break lead against Grimmsnarl. That Tangrowth, with its incredible move pool, Brick Break right away to stop any of Grimmsnarl's shenanigans, and then also made an awesome pivot later with the Lantern, which would be able to paralyze the Dragonite. He were definitely recognized as the big offensive threat on Tony's side. Shutting that down right away with the bulky Lantern was definitely the right play. But I think overall, the winning game plan for him was definitely his 2 offensive 4-legged creatures. We're talking about the Galarian Rapidash and the Zygarde. Those things had barely any switch-ins. Play Rough Rapidash really only had Celesteela as a switch-in, and that ended up pairing well with Heatran. Of course, Heatran missing several Fire Blasts, but I really like the combination there, the pairing there between those two. But he also found an opportunity later to get a Swords Dance up with the Rapidash Galar, really started ripping through the team, and if that weren't enough, the Zygarde, with its 1,000 arrows, no resist, able to knock things down and just wipe them out. Zygarde really came in clutch, sweeping through quite a bit of the team there. It outsped everything. It's just a recognition of an awesome matchup for a Mon like that. Handled the Celesteela incredibly well. As we said, that was Rapidash's only swap in, but he's able to kind of play around that pretty well. Sacked off the Tangrowth at the right time to make sure that it wasn't getting any extra recovery with the Leech Seed, knocking off the lefties. Just an excellently played game to end up with the 4-0 victory. And again, moving him up into our top 4 as a 2-0 team. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Steve?
I also really wanted to shout out the horse and pup, as he has named them. Great work with both of them, as you mentioned. Last season I had used Zygarde 10% some, and I gotta say that 1,000 Arrows attack is fantastic. Being able to hit the things that you're depending on for your flying immunity really just messes with a lot of defensive cores, and just using 1,000 Arrows can really mess with a lot of teams. It really takes a bulky grass type to effectively wall that, and not every team has one of those. And a lot of the bulky grass types are poison and are neutral to ground. So Zygarde, excellent Mon. Really excited to see what it does the rest of the season. And I mean, Horse 2 in this matchup, very strong use, and excited to see, if this is just a matchup for it or if it's going to continue to put out this kind of performance in future weeks. Michael, do you got anything else?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have shouted out two Pokemon, but I think really unspoken thing is that the Tangrowth and the Lantern set up an incredible foundation for this match. An excellent use of status to neutralize the Celesteela and the Dragonite early on, which just took out two major threats on the opposing side and let those two Pokemon that you guys have been talking to get to work right away.
Yeah, definitely utilized those very well. Volt Switch from Lantern, Regenerator on Tangrowth, let him switch in and out of those as well, just helping to break down his opponent's team. Excellently done. He may be new to this particular type of draft league, but he's been in some of our other leagues before, and every season it seems Alphels does very well. So excited to bring him into the league this time around. So that'll wrap up the top four. Now we got some other teams that we want to keep a little bit of an eye on here, including a bunch of 1-1 teams, as well as another surprise down there. Let's start off with perhaps the elephant in the room. I have been knocked down from the top four. Your Buffalo Boufflant coming in here at number 5, and the Close Combat Club, who we played this week, at number 7. You may have already seen the feature match at the beginning, but spoiler alert, Buffalo Boufflant dropped 1-0 to the Close Combat Club. Very cool game, very close game. Maybe a little bit of hacks, maybe a little bit of bad play going on there, but knocked me down a peg for sure. It's a big win for John in the Close Combat Club that earns his spot on the list after a very rough week 1. Do you guys have anything real quick that you may want to add on to that?
Yeah. Of course, Buffalo Boufflant have been kind of the staple of the league. Very strong team always, and one loss is certainly not enough to keep them off the list forever. So they're definitely on here, and we anticipate Nate coming back onto the top 4 soon. But we'll see how his play progresses in the future seasons and future weeks.
But I've got some tough matches coming up too. This could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a personal team though, and I just want to say that you picking up the Hail Core at the end of the draft was a criminal oversight by everyone else in the draft. You did that, and I immediately felt like the biggest idiot.
I definitely appreciated getting those funds for such good value too, adding a cool little aspect. Maybe it was not bringing the Hail Core that led to my downfall this week, but maybe we'll just have to see for the future. The last match that we have yet to talk about features the number 6 and 8 teams here, the Cincinnati Incineroar, who were on the top 4 last week, and the Boulder Bulldors, who once again had a very close game. Steve, if you could take us through this match just a little bit here for us.
Yeah, just as a brief overview, Cat Measles and his Cincinnati Incineroar brought a team of Kartana, Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Poliwrath, Ludicolo, and Ditto, facing off against Zazbo and his Boulder, bringing a team of the Urshifu, Rapid Strike, Weavile, Kingdra, Shiinotic, Jolteon, and Pelipper. And at the end of the game, the Boulders came out with a 2-0 win. Nice, close game. Some key things here on the Incineroar side. No Zoroark, and he lost. That's it. That's really all I need to say about that. For the Boulders, great use of his. Well, he brought his weather once again, but was very mindful of Cat Measles' potential abusers in Poliwrath and Ludicolo, and was therefore okay kind of sacking off the Pelipper early. So, smart play there, being aware of his opponent's ability to abuse his own setup. It was also really nice to see one of the lower tier mons like Shiinotic being able to wall such a powerhouse like Kartana for so long. That was, it's always nice to see when the lower tier mons are able to put in that work and wall something like that. Michael, do you have anything you want to add about this?
I mean, Matt is down here out of the top 4 for now, but I entirely expect to see him make it back, maybe even next week. I'm going up against him next week, and I just gotta say, his team is one of, if not the scariest lineups in the league. He just has some incredible options on his team between the Tapus and Kartana, which will tear down your team. It's just a question of when, not a question of if. Ditto can reverse sweep you. Shuckle and Zoroark we saw week 1 can do impressive things together. He's got Magic Bounce and Rain Abusers to follow it up. I mean, it's just everything on a team.
Yeah, very interesting, well put together team. It seems top heavy at first, but like you said, those mid and low tier threats can definitely put in a lot of work. Of course, they're no match for the god Shiinotic, but I was a little surprised, like Steve mentioned, that Joe brought Rain at all whenever Polyrath and Ludicolo were there. But as he also said, played around it very nicely, very well. Sasbo, another newcomer to the league here. Very cool to see all these teams doing quite well. And on that note, too, we're going to wrap up our Keep an Eye On with the Zanesville Zigzagoons. Now, this is a 0-2 team, but they have had a couple of very close matches against some very good teams in particular. They suffered a 2-0 loss to Chad in week 1 and a 3-0 to Joey here in week 2. But those are two teams, honestly, I think we could all say we expected those to be larger margins of victory, and the Zigzagoons have proven that they're keeping up quite well. Despite a 0-2 record, I expect multiple wins out of this team and to compete in the playoffs. So very cool to see a team we didn't expect to do this well, doing quite well. What do you all think?
Yeah, as you mentioned, great performance against some of the stronger teams that are, right now atop our power rankings. So very excited to see what the Zigzagoon will do starting in week 4, specifically not this week.
That is, of course, a perfect lead-in to the final portion here, which we're going to kind of go over real quick here, which is the schedule for week 3, just so we can see some of the more exciting matchups going on. At the top, you see the Buffalo Buffalo and the Akron Agrons. We have a little bit of a history with each other, but I'm looking to get back on track, and Joey's having a dominant start to the season, so I think that one definitely stands out. And as Michael mentioned, he is going against the Cincinnati Incineroar in Week 3. That is definitely another cool standout that I'm excited to watch. I think one of the other ones we'd like to point out is the Newport Noctiles facing off with the Close Combat Club. A couple of teams definitely looking to prove themselves and move up a little bit in the rankings. We've got quite a lineup here in Week 3. Do either of you two have any closing thoughts on the schedule or Week 2 overall?
I really don't have anything else to add, no.
I mean, I'll be looking forward to weeks 3 and 4. I think, we kind of hit on it during the beginning that, right now all the power rankings and stuff are going pretty straight with the wins, losses, rankings. But weeks 3 and 4, you finally start to see middle of the pack establish itself. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the league starts to shuffle itself out in the next couple weeks.
Definitely true. Definitely appreciate having you on, Michael. You and your Route 1 Burbs have impressed us thus far. Let's see if you can end up keeping that streak going against one of our admins in the Incineroar. So that'll do it from us. Hope you enjoyed the feature match at the beginning and the Power Rankings discussion here at the end, and we'll see you in Week 3.